I think we have to look at 4 different things: the cultural impacts, the mental health issues, the law enforcement components, and making certain law enforcement at the local, state, and federal level have the tools to do their job, and they do their job. And then, of course, the hardening of our schools and soft targets. And I brought up the issue of culture with the president because moms brought it up with me. And for some time now, I've been hearing from moms, and I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I would hear from young moms about how concerned they were with the content that children were seeing in video games and in movies, and what they were hearing in songs. And they kept saying, this has to be having an impact.
You mentioned the law enforcement aspect of this, and there's been a lot of other things talked about, making these AR-15 style weapons illegal, raising the age limit here. But we often forget, or it's not talked about as much, that the law enforcement did have a lot of tools that they could have used to prevent this shooting.
That's exactly right. And what we want to do is make certain that there is the right coordination. When you look at the mental health component of this, of young adults, and they turn 18, but all of a sudden then no one has access to their health records, and there are the mental health issues, there needs to be a next of kin or a caregiver that has that information. And then these children that have that record of mental illness, when they turn 18, that needs to be transparent, not only to the caseworkers working with those families and the psychiatrists, but there needs to be an appropriate way to red flag that.
President Trump seemed open to a lot of things that made Second Amendment advocates concerned. He had a great meeting, his words, with the NRA. Do you think he's actually going to continue to keep an eye, to talk about things like raising the age limit for buying these guns, making AR-15 style weapons illegal? Your colleague Brian Mast is still pushing for that. Do you think any of that is actually going to come to fruition?
I have to tell you, I think that there is a way, and I don't know what the president is going to continue to talk about. I do think there is a way for us to protect the Second Amendment rights and to make safe our schools and our children and churches and public places, and making certain that there is protection. Like one of my deacons last week from a church in my congressional district called me and he said, Marsha, I've got to tell you, in our church, I can tell you every Sunday who in the narthex, who in the choir, who on the right side, the left side, passing the offering plate has a gun. Because we have done this now for the past several years. Yeah. And many churches have moved forward to do that. And they're bringing those ideas to us.
Switching topics now, and something else that raised some eyebrows when the president mentioned it yesterday was this issue on tariffs. We saw the stock market responded. What do you think about this proposal of adding these tariffs to imports of steel and aluminum?
There is no doubt we need to deal with China. I think everybody agrees with that. But let's do this in a way that is not going to adversely impact our allies. Let's go after the offenders. And we certainly do not want to do it in a way that is going to drive up prices for the American consumer. In my district, you have a lot of auto parts manufacturing. You have tool and die pressing. We rolled steel. Some aluminum casting. Those are industries that are working on washing machines and auto parts and things of that nature, fire extinguishers and systems. We do not want to make those more expensive.
Yesterday, Vladimir Putin was boasting about some new nuclear weapons he has. He released these computer videos, these renderings that showed an attack directly on the state of Florida, actually. What is an appropriate response to Vladimir Putin? Congress has passed sanctions. The president has not yet signed them yet. What's the proper way to respond to Putin?
I think it would be a good thing for the president to sign and for us to let it be known that we don't take such a conversation lightly.
Are you frustrated that those sanctions haven't been signed yet? It seems like there's a growing amount of frustration in Congress.
We would like to see them signed. We think it's appropriate to sign them, and we do not want to do anything that is going to embolden Vladimir Putin. So signing the sanctions, letting them know that we are watching, that we take all of these comments seriously, is important for us to do.
Let's wrap up and talk about Billy Graham. You were mentioning that you had a chance to visit with him when he was lying in honor in the rotunda this week. He cut through so many differences in this country to find a special place in just about everybody's heart. Why was he able to do that, and what are you going to remember most about him?
Oh, he was such a wonderful communicator, and he was so passionate about the gospel. And I thought it was so significant that Congress decided to allow him to lay in honor and for people to come. The lines were enormous, and once we received him on Wednesday, it was, I think, a 3-hour wait that people were waiting in order to get into the Capitol to pay their respects. And I am like many people. I will remember those times as a child, as you watched him on TV and watched him preach and listened to the clarity and the simplicity with which he preached the gospel.